Live on Facebook or Zoom? Yes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out to our fourth and final Cocktails & Company of 2020. We want to thank everyone for coming to the Green Island Country Club tonight and thank them for hosting us. Also would like to thank all of our members that are viewing us on social media and Zoom. I have the pleasure tonight of introducing Jerald Mitchell, who is the new president and CEO of the Greater Columbus, Georgia Chamber of Commerce. And hosting tonight is going to be Amy Bryant, and she is the Executive Vice President of Leadership and Community Development with the Chamber. Sorry about that, Amy. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Amy.
Thank you, Ashley. And real quick, I just want to acknowledge Ashley and all the work that she's done in 2020. It's been an interesting year to chair the Young Professionals Program, and you guys have done a phenomenal job. I mean, when we talk about pivoting during these times, I've been most impressed with the young professionals and how you guys have, I mean, y'all immediately were like, okay, we can transition, we can do this virtually, we can do cool things and cool programming. So thanks to you and your leadership. I also want to acknowledge, because they're both here, Quindle H and Brantley Pittman have agreed to co-chair Young Professionals for 2021. Y'all stand up. But thank you for the work that you committed to do, and we're excited about 2021 and what the year holds, and working alongside you guys and your leadership. So thank you so very much. Welcome to our virtual viewers. We are so glad that you're joining us, and then our in-person folks. We're so glad to see folks in person and be here together. This is great. So I want to quickly thank our sponsors, because again, during these times, pivoting and making things happen, it doesn't just happen. You've got to have support of your partners and corporate support. And what's so great about this program is that our corporate donors have always believed in the Young Professionals program from the very beginning. So I want to thank our founding sponsors, who are Aflac and W.C. Bradley, for believing this program and continuing to support this program. After 10 years, it's really incredible that they've seen what this means to our community. So thanks to them. And then also our partners, who are TSYS, Global Payments, and the Bib Mill. Again, people that believe in the work that the young professionals are doing and what it means for our community. And finally, our supporting sponsor, Pratt Whitney, who came on last year and really became super involved. They've got a lot of young employees, and again, believe in the work that young professionals are doing. So let's get straight to the point. Let's get to the reason that we're here, which is for Cocktails & Company, with our friend Jerald Mitchell, who we are thrilled to have here in Columbus. I think one of the most exciting things about Jerald, in my opinion, is that he's young, y'all. We got a young guy that is in this president and CEO position, and I think that I think for us, right, aspiring young professionals, this proves to us that that you can get there, and you can be in a leadership position and make a difference. And so, real quick, I'm going to give y'all a brief on his bio, but I'm going to ask him to share his background, so I'm not going to get too in depth. But Jerald is the president and CEO of the Columbus Chamber, and he also leads the activities for the Muscogee County Development Authority. In the role, he leads the charge to advance the regional economy through corporate member engagement, business growth, and redevelopment and economic mobility. Prior to this, he was the vice president of economic development for the Atlanta Bella. How many of y'all have ventured out and seen the Bella? Right? So cool. He's cool. Right. Welcome. So he's been working in economic development, prior to that 13 years in experience with job attraction, private investment, inclusive economies, lean strategy, placemaking, technology, corporate development. Prior to that, he was in telecommunications, managing cable system operations and executing new product launches. Post-merger management, process engineering, with Time Warner, Jones Communications, and Comcast. Pretty cool, right? Jerald serves as a trustee on the board, or including the Georgia Institute of Technology Alumni Board, Leadership Columbus Board of Trustees, the Georgia Public Telecommunications Commission, Georgia Workforce Investment Board, and he's an alum of Georgia Tech with an MBA in Global Business from Georgia Southern University Armstrong campus with a BA in Economics. So he's cool. He's the real deal. And like I said, we've got a young person in a position to really make a difference in our community. So we're going to dive right in.
Let's do it.
This is a lot, and a lot of great accomplishments. But let's talk a little bit, Jerald. First of all, welcome.
Thank you. Thank
To your first young professional today.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah. Check my mic.
I don't think it's on.
Or it's not working.
I hate red lights.
Hello.
No.
It's okay. Our virtual viewers can hear you. So if
Am
you
I
don't,
out loud? Am I-
yeah, you don't have to use
Okay,
it.
cool. All right, awesome. So let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about how you got to this point. So we read your bio, we've got your details, but let's really talk about Jerald, young professional, and from post-graduation to right here in this moment.
Yeah, so that's kind of loaded. And there are a lot of different, I think, components to that story. And part of it is that, I was lucky in that every career that I've had, every job that I've had, I've worked with people and with leadership that actually care about me. So one of the things I will tell you, hands down, is, more than you think about picking an opportunity for the work that you're going to do, it's extremely important or crucial that you think about the people that you're going to work for and with. So I always had people pushing me. I always had leadership who, told me that, look, we know that you're going to want more at some point. Our job is to help you get better here, help you grow. And when you're ready to move on and take that next step, we're going to be there to support you, because they recognize that it's a good thing to have somebody just knock the ball out of the park. And then when they go to another team, you've got an ally. So I've been really fortunate in that regard throughout my career in telecommunications and in economic development. Like Amy said, I had the opportunity to do a lot of work in the telecommunications industry. And primarily what I did is, in running cable systems, when we were doing acquisition of other cable companies, it was my job to go into those cable companies and make them look like Time Warner or Comcast. And that involved a lot of just kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of operations and really just kind of trying to eliminate duplications where they existed, and then trying to figure out where the right places were for the people that we had in the organization. So had an opportunity to do that, got a lot of experience about how to run a business. And because of those opportunities, I ended up doing a lot of franchise negotiations and getting into kind of this government affairs and economic development world. And because of that, I had the opportunity to go to work in the economic development department at the state while Sonny Perdue was governor. So I did that for a few years. The economy took a dive. I think we all experienced that. So I left the state. The state was having shrinking tax revenue. So another lesson I learned, and one of the things that I need to write about this, but one of the things I think about in terms of my life and my career are moments. Moments when you learn something, moments that are just kind of critical to what that next phase of life or of your career look like. So I need to write about it. But I was one of the least tenured people at the Georgia Department of Economic Development when tax revenue started to shrink. So they decided to shrink the project management staff, and my role was one of the ones that was eliminated. Good news is that throughout that process, I built a lot of relationships, and I had a reputation, and it was a couple of days before I had another opportunity. So I'll tell you a funny thing about that experience was, usually when the commissioner of the Department of Economic Development calls and says he's going to be in your region, or she's going to be in your region, what you do is you say, okay, I need the itinerary, because what you want to do is start planning stuff. You want to start to make sure that the agenda's full. You want to start to make sure that the trip and everything goes really smoothly for the commissioner or for the governor. So I was told that that the commissioner was coming in. I asked for the itinerary, and what I was told was, we don't have it together yet. Give us a couple of days. We'll get it to you so you can plan the trip for the event. So I was like, okay. So I called back a couple of days later to my supervisor, and I said, Jennifer, do you have the itinerary yet? And she goes, no. She goes, but just be at the airport when the commissioner comes in, and they'll help you then, or they'll give you the information then. So I'm there, and the commissioner uses the governor's plane when he moves around the state. So I'm at this private air terminal, and I see the plane come in. It's a little King Air, and it's kind of cool, just kind of being on the runway and watching that happen and whatnot. So the plane taxis all the way back around, and it stops. The door opens, and I see Ken Stewart, who was the commissioner at the time. He gets off the plane. And then I see Karen Hampton, who's HR. She gets off the plane. And I'm like, this is not a prospect visit. So, we had a conversation. It was a really good conversation. And I think it hurt them more than it hurt me to let me know that they were shrinking the staff. I did a couple of things. First thing I did is I said, I understand where we are. This is a terrible time for everybody. Can I count on you guys for references or recommendations for my next opportunity? And they said, hell yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely do that for you. So then I get in the car and I take a deep breath and I drive home. For the first time in my life, I lit a cigar. I poured a glass of bourbon and I lit up the grill, and I started thinking about, what was going to happen next. What I was going to do to kind of get through this, knowing that the entire world around me was crashing. And like I said, luckily, because of the relationships I built, that was something that, really turned out to be a non-event for me. I landed on my feet pretty well. There are some people that probably today still haven't landed. Amy, I'm sorry, I'm taking too much time.
No, you're great. I'm about to skip a question and go to another one. This is great.
So again, had that experience, got a chance to work in economic development. I went to Savannah. I worked at the Development Authority in Savannah for several years. I started out managing large projects for attraction, recruitment, or retention. I had the opportunity to do innovation, which meant that I was building an ecosystem to support entrepreneurs and innovators within the existing companies. There's an organization that we stood up as a part of that called the Creative Coast. It's a lot like what we've done here with Startup Columbus. So I had an opportunity to do that, understand those ecosystems, understand how venture capital works, how to connect all of these things to build a thriving entrepreneurial community. Then I got a phone call, and the phone call was, hey, there's this thing, and it's called the Atlanta Beltline. They're looking for somebody to build an economic development program for them. You should check it out. And my instinct was, I'm good. So I passed on it 3 times, and I got another call about it. I submitted my resume, and I didn't hear anything for months. So I finally got a call right before the holidays, and I interviewed, and I went. And I knew that I knew traditional economic development, and I knew what it meant to go out and pursue companies, and what it meant to develop sites, and what it meant to do incentive packages or programs that help attract companies. And that is not what the Beltline was. So I go to the Atlanta Beltline, and it's basically this 22-mile loop around the heart of the city of Atlanta, and it's this abandoned rail. And I'm looking at it like, you know, so fast forward, you know, I start to get in, and it took me about a year to actually figure out where we fit from an economic development standpoint, because you already had the Development Authority of Atlanta, which is Invest Atlanta. You had Fulton County Development Authority, you know, doing traditional economic development. You had the state that's bringing all these projects to Atlanta. So I'm thinking, how do we fit here? And what I realized was that I had what everybody needed, and it was product. There were tons of distressed sites around the Atlanta Beltline corridor. And while 80% of the organization worked on building out the actual physical trail system, my role was to work around it. It was to find those sites and work with people like Pace Alter and others to help do good development projects around the Atlanta Beltline. When I got there, the Beltline had already been in existence for about 10 years. And they had achieved about $1 billion in private investment. And I was there for 6.5 years. And by the time I left, that private investment number had jumped from $1 billion to $6.5 billion. And again, it was because we were very intentional about how we went out to work with the development community, how to work with the community to build something that not only would put the economy on turbocharge, but that people who lived in these communities in different parts of Atlanta could also continue to interact with them. We learned some tough lessons during that. But that was the largest part of my journey on the way to being here. I got a phone call last December from a site selection, or not a site selection, an executive search firm. And I'd always told myself that if I took another job in the chamber or economic development world, that there were really only 3 places that I would consider. I said that it would be Jacksonville, it would be Savannah, or it would be Charleston. And maybe I'd consider Nashville. You thought I was going to say Columbus.
I had my fingers crossed.
But the call that I got was about Columbus. And I looked at all the documents.
Did you say Ohio?
No, I did not. I did not. That was not my mistake. So I looked at the documents, and then I said, why wasn't Columbus on my list? So I told them that I would certainly explore it. And we started the conversation, and I came over a few times, and I said to myself again, why did I think about Columbus? I will tell you, and I said this to the search committee several times, Columbus shows so well. You know, I was staying at the Rapids every time I came. It was walkable. It was easy to get to restaurants. You know, the meetings that we were having were over at the Snowdus building. Obviously, you know, shows very well. I'm looking at the river, and obviously shows very well. There's a lot of energy, a lot of excitement. And again, I kept going back to, why didn't I think about Columbus? And then I heard more about Columbus, and I learned more. I learned about this being the birthplace of Coca-Cola, RC Cola, TSYS, Synovus, Aflac, WC Bradley, all these companies that became behemoths in their own right. And I said, there's something special about a place that can grow those types of businesses. When you look at Atlanta, for instance, can anybody think of more than 2 companies in Atlanta that were born there, big companies? I can really only think of one, and it's Home Depot. Delta is Mississippi. You know, so I go back to, there was something special about that spirit here. And then I learned about the Columbus Challenge and how a community this size punched so far above its weight, raising $100 million for the arts and having done that type of fundraising lift a couple times before that. A lot of things just aligned, and it was really impressive, and I said yes. That was a long way to get to that.
You answered question 2, 3, and 4. That's okay. I do want to mention Jerald's wife, Stephanie, is equally as impressive as Jerald. She's senior counsel for Siemens, and she played a role, right, in the decision making of Columbus, and was it? Yes.
Of course she did. And she's not smarter than me.
But outside of, you know, the assets in place and the things like the businesses and our enterprising culture and those type of things, what was it about kind of the lifestyle piece? Because you're coming from Atlanta, and a lot of us go to Atlanta on the weekends to see entertainment options and things like that. So how was that a selling point, or how did you kind of justify that in your mind? Like, I'm leaving this, but I'm coming to this.
Yeah, so, you know, so I'm from Savannah. My wife is actually from Bay City, Michigan, which is another, you know, town that is similar to Columbus, Savannah, similar to Columbus, Bay City, Michigan. So we have really, and this is good and bad, we really exhausted, you know, kind of the fun factor in Atlanta. You know, we've done everything that we wanted to do there, and we just really talked about it and felt like the timing was right. And then COVID happened, and I've said this several times, and I really believe it, in that Atlanta, the benefit and beauty of Atlanta is it has every amenity under the sun. Every amenity under the sun doesn't matter when you can't use them. Now, when I think about the Beltline, if I'm on the Beltline for 30 minutes, I'm going to encounter probably 100 people. If I'm on the Riverwalk for 30 minutes, I'm going to probably encounter 30 people, 15, right now at least. So the point is I can get out and enjoy that amenity, and I can do it safely. The sheer density of Atlanta makes it harder to be safe in an environment like this. So actually, why it took me so long to actually get here, get on the ground, was because of COVID. And that was more of a personal scenario in the sense that I felt really guilty about leaving the Atlanta Beltline high and dry during the global pandemic. But I got over that.
Also, I think you're being very modest too. Like you had been on the search firms list for a little bit, and I think that they had reached out to you on some other occasions as well. And the fact that you chose Columbus, I mean, we appreciate that. We're excited about that. But
Columbus chose me, and I'm glad. I'm glad.
But I think you know. I feel like you're being very modest because they wanted you and they saw your potential and knew that you were ready to lead the organization. And we're glad that you chose this organization.
Yeah, thank you. You know, for me, it was really important that whatever the next step was in my career was the right one. They did call with other opportunities that I didn't feel like those were the right moves. When I looked at this community, I saw so many things. I saw pretty much all the puzzle pieces on the table. And I just need everybody's help, snap them all together. They're here. All the infrastructure, everything we need to be more successful is here. So
we're going to take it like a deep step and we're going to go into kind of where we are currently in the world. And, you know, you talked about smoking a cigar and drinking a bourbon, and that's cool, like during stressful times, we all need to decompress in some capacity. But how do you manage change during stressful economic periods, which we've seen, and you obviously were a part of, versus kind of the robust conditions that we think Columbus was clearly on the brink of, like, what does that look like for you and managing the future?
Yeah, so, I am probably the most laid back type A personality you will ever meet. Yeah, you know, just kind of, just by nature, I'm just really lucky, in that, you know, one of the things that I usually do when stuff gets, crazy or hectic is I take a step back. Sometimes that's the right thing to do, sometimes it's not. Sometimes, you know, something more immediate, more assertive is required. But my nature is to take a step back and assess. And it may feel like, or it may appear as if I'm not engaged, but I promise you, it's like a duck on the water. I promise you, underneath the surface, I'm very engaged. And one of the things that my wife says all the time is that I'm too observant. You know, I'm one of those people that I just notice things. I mean, I don't know why, I just notice things. And I just kind of, so a good friend of mine, who's also in economic development, she's down on the coast in Effingham County, her name's Jessica Hood. You know, she's the opposite of me, and she's a really good friend. And from time to time she'll call and she'll say, I just want to get this done, what do I do, what do I do? And what I've said to her on many occasions, now to the point where she will text it to me when she's employing it. But one of the things that I've said to her is, Jessica, let the game come to you. Sometimes we want to be in a mode of problem solver and of immediate or instant gratification. And sometimes the best thing to do is just to kind of see how this situation or how things are going to play out or come to you. You know, it's kind of like if you're into sports or if you're into, pool is a great example. And I'll tell you a very brief anecdote. I think she's gonna hit me. And it was the first time, and I was probably 20 years old. I was playing in the pool league, and it was my first game in the league. And because I had never played in this particular league before, you know, I wasn't getting bad people to play early on, you know. So I'm playing this game or this match in the pool, and so when you play, I think it's the best of 5. You play the best of 5 or something like that. And I'm wiping the floor with this guy that I'm playing. And then somebody says, this dude is about to beat the #1 player in our league. And then what I did is I started trying to make shots that I should not be taking. And he came back and he won. But that is the analogy for the way we have to, I think, approach something, right? For me, it was lay back, let him make the mistake, you know? And then when he does, capitalize on it. And again, I put the pressure on myself to you know, beat this guy because somebody got in my head and said, you're about to beat this guy. And again, that was for me, you know, one of those moments that I talked about earlier. And I'll never forget it. And again, it's one of those things that just says, let's see what he's doing. The pressure's on him, not on me. So again, just, you know, that's a roundabout way to get to it.
So that's where you are in your headspace. How do you motivate others? I mean, this is, you walked into a very challenging situation with the organization, and I shouldn't say challenging, but without a CEO for 9 months.
Oh, it's challenging.
And in the community, I am the challenge. That is I am the biggest challenge. And Team Allen, pool, come on. And he was like, what are we doing? We're doing golf? No, we're going to pool. Kind of players. But how do you, so you know what works for you, but motivating others, because I think we're all at a weird time in our lives, whether it's with our, you know, with our work, with our personal lives. So what do you think is important to motivate and for you specifically in the role that you're in? the community is looking to you too, not just your team that you're leading, but externally as well. So what is that like and motivating and
Again,
encouraging?
it just goes back to experience. You know, one of the roles that I had when I was managing these cable systems was I managed offices and call centers. And in managing offices and call centers, 90% of my staff was female. And I'm this, 24-year-old guy with all this responsibility. And I had some scenarios that, helped me grow because I didn't handle them the right way. An example is there was one day where one of my team members came into my office and she was really upset and she was letting me have it because she had a horrible interaction with the customer. So she's just yelling at me and I look at her and I say, LaToya, what I need you to do is I need you to get out of my office.
Ouch.
And what she did is she got up and she slammed the door. And I took the bait. So I opened the door and I said, get back in here. And that turned into a write-up that ultimately turned into her dismissal. Over a bad call with a customer, that was crap. She didn't handle it well, but neither did I. Fast forward 2 years later, I had another employee or team member. Her name is Lynn Hangula, and Lynn had a similar situation. Lynn comes into my office and she's in tears and she's just letting me have it. She had a horrible interaction with a customer and I was working on something budgetary, I think. And so she comes in and she starts just giving it to me. And I sit back and I stop typing and I give her my attention. And she's still just letting me have it. And I didn't say a word. I let her finish, and she storms out of my office, slams the door. I sit up, turn back around to my computer, and start working on what I'm working on again. And she comes back about 5 minutes later, bawling her eyes out, and she says, I'm sorry. That wasn't about you. It wasn't about the customer. It's about some stuff that I've got going on at home. I said, what do you need? And I say that to say that one, part of being good support and being encouraging to the people that you lead is managing yourself. And the other part of it is understanding that there's something different that makes everybody that you work with tick. And it's your job to figure out what it is that's making each one of them tick. If you want to get the best outcomes and the best performance out of those people, you have to hear. So.
No to self. Do not slam. And we have a door that connects our offices. Like tomorrow, slam. So stress and cigars and bourbon aside, what is work-life balance look like for you? What do you do to decompress at the end of the day? What does that look like?
That's one that I'm not so good at, right? I mean, I like to read, I like to play golf. My wife and I go to the beach a lot. I like to do those things, but I don't do enough. You have been the victim of my, late evening emails. When I think about it, I try to.
They respond.
She does. She responds. She's very responsive. But that is an arena that I need to, I think, work on more. I need to be more intentional about stepping away from it. Again, that's more of that type A coming out, right? Whereas, I need to get it done. I need to, figure it out because I feel like I'm letting people down.
So here, like in this space after work, is it jogging on the Riverwalk? Is it going to the gym at Rapids? Like what here in this moment works for you outside of a vacation?
Yep. So we have started running again. So I'm a half marathon kind of guy. My wife did, she did the Marine Corps Marathon in DC 2 years ago. I will never do a full marathon, I promise you that. She said she's one and done, but that was one of the things that was really easy for us to start doing again here in Columbus, really easy.
And I mentioned the
And it's flat.
rabbits, and I think we talked, you mentioned the rabbits is kind of your landing spot in your interview process, but that's kind of where you are right now.
It
It's
is.
a cool space to be.
It really
and-
is. I will tell you, it's very cosmopolitan. I mean, it gives you that feel, where, on the weekends, we can park our cars and not have to worry about it until Monday morning, and honestly, I don't even work a mile away from the rapids, so technically I can walk to work or ride my bike every day, but I'll get there.
Last week, we had a meeting, and it was like a block over from the rapids, and Jerald said, he was like, well, I'm gonna go walk and get a coffee, and then I'll meet y'all at the spot, and I was like, that's how Metro, dude. You're like, walking to get your coffee, and then walk to the next spot, like, we try to do some of that, I was like, who's so and Becca, I want to acknowledge Becca. Into that, Becca is the executive director of the Jurassic Line Trail and is doing an incredible job activating our trail system, connecting our trail system. We're so excited for what the future holds for the Dragonfly and the work that she's doing. So thank you for being here, being a member of our board and supporting Waukee. So we talked about work-life balance. We talked about, kind of exterior, but let's talk about like this generation and the folks that are sitting in this room right now, what they're trying to garner from you, like what they want to know from your life experiences. So in your opinion, what do you think the challenges for this next generation are going to be? What are we looking at?
That's a really good question, and I think there are so many. No, I'm just kidding. Just trying to make sure you're still. No, there are a lot of challenges. One is that the world is changing so much faster, and keeping up with that, I can only imagine the stress that's involved with that for you all. The other thing is, and don't hate me for saying this, but it's building relationships that are more than surface. I think that is the disadvantage of the social media era. And I think social media is fantastic, but it cannot replace deep and abiding relationships. I think that that will be the thing that when you look at your career in 10 years, it won't be a person helping you or giving you an opportunity because you're Facebook friends, even though you've never met. It's going to be that person that says, Ashley is clutch. It's going to be that person that knows that you will come and get them out of a ditch at 3 o'clock in the morning. Again, those are the relationships that I would encourage all of you guys to just nurture and develop. They're priceless, and you never know when you're going to need them.
Speaking, and this is not on our list, but I'm going to go into this. So we've made it so easy for this, even now, like during the pandemic, so easy for this like virtual connection. And I feel like we're still kind of driving that. But what I've recognized about you is that relationship piece, even prior to what you just said, like Jerald's got a buddy everywhere, and that's what's important. And you keep that in your pocket, and you keep those relationships close, and that's important. What do you think, like, the future is gonna look? We gotta get outside of like Zoom rooms and things like that. What do you think when we can emerge? How should we emerge, and what does that need to look like?
So you'll hear me say a lot, in our everyday work about hybrids and about pilots. I think that pilots give us the opportunity to test things and figure out if we want to make them permanent. I think that right now there is kind of this pendulum that's swinging between old world, which is I need you in the office every day, 40 hours a week, and new world where I don't see you at all. I think that's extremely tough for people that are newer to the workplace or the workforce. because you don't have the benefit of somebody seeing that mistake that you're about to make and pulling you off the edge. So I think that hybrids are really going to be a thing that we all need to leverage. It's how do we take the best of all worlds in pretty much every scenario and figure out how to pull them together and create something magnificent.
So I would be, somebody would fire me if I didn't ask this question, but in your minds, currently where you are in Columbus, like what do you think is the most amazing thing? Amazing, you see what I did there? Most amazing thing about Columbus.
And you know what I'm going to say. What do you think?
The world needs to.
What do you think?
The people.
No, well, it's that. It is that. That goes without saying. That's Smoky Bones.
Really?
There's a hot bag of donuts.
She's not with golden donuts yet, so we are not golden.
The hot no, but it is definitely the people. I will tell you. When we moved in and we moved our stuff over and, you know, we got some stuff into our apartment and we got some stuff in the storage and we found that there were a few things that we wanted to donate to Goodwill. And, you know, so I loaded the things up and drove over to the Goodwill for veterans. And I get out of the car and I start to like pull the stuff out of the car so that they can take it in. And this guy says, "So you're leaving Columbus?" I said, "No, I'm actually coming to Columbus." And he was like, "Good. Welcome to Columbus." And it was one of the most genuine welcome to anywheres that I've ever heard in my life. And I will tell you that is something that I think is pretty prevalent here, just in that the people that you interact with, even though they might not agree with everybody on everything, people actually genuinely care about this community and moving it forward and how to get to the next step and what they can do to be a part of something good. And I think that that is not something that you will find everywhere, and I do think that it is priceless. And the hot bag of donuts.
Everybody gets how they said that's never happened in my life. So we'll wrap it up. I know we're short on time, but you know, you've obviously been instrumental in the success of Belmont. And there were a lot of assets in place, you know, they weren't assets until those assets were redeveloped. But, you know, even in the last 10 years, Columbus has seen a surge in activity and new development and redevelopment and things like that. And we think as Columbusites that there's a lot of potential, right? What do you think our potential is in the next 10 years? Like what are we going to drive home to put Columbus on the map?
So I think it's people, right? I think that it's the driving force. I think that it's art. I think that it's workforce development. It's how we strengthen CSU. It's how we strengthen Columbus Tech. It's how we invest in people. That is going to be the thing. At the end of the day, we had a lot of success around the Atlanta Beltline, and it was all driven by one thing. And that one thing was workforce, those people. When I left, or by the time I left the Beltline, we had the numbers for 2019. And somewhere around 38 to 40% of the city of Atlanta's millennials live around the Atlanta Beltline. We saw relocations, corporate relocations of BlackRock, of McKinsey & Company, from Buckhead to the Beltline. And the reason they wanted to be there is because it was where they're going to find sticky employees. And the success and failure of companies is all going to be driven by the talent that they can attract. So to the extent that we leverage the Dragonfly as a place that the workforce wants to be around, until we elevate the arts program at CSU as world-class so that people don't think they have to pay $100,000 a year or whatever it costs to go to SCAD, to get into film. Until we elevate those critical components that really put a focus and emphasis on people, and then we start to talk about it and tell the story, we're going to have challenges. But again, I believe that we can do this. This is not insurmountable.
Sure. And to our audience, virtually and in person, how can we get involved as young professionals? What can we do what can we do to be a part of the change and to get involved, whether it's in the chamber or with the work that Becca's doing with the Dragonfly? What do you think our opportunities are?
Yeah. So the opportunities are plug in wherever you can. There's no shortage of need for talent, smart people with energy. There are a lot of people in this community that have been there to raise money and do the heavy lifts whenever this community needed it. But those people are in their twilights. They're not going to be here forever. Each of you and our friends, our family members, all have a responsibility. We all have a little role in how this advances. So again, I would encourage each of you and the people that you know to just get involved somewhere. And it doesn't have to be something you hate. Get involved on the things that you like to do. And try to touch somebody, give somebody an example, be an example.
This has been great. So do we have a couple of minutes? Are there any? You're good. Okay. Any questions of the audience?
Hello. Hi, I am a high school teacher. What should I tell my students about pursuing success? I teach at Central High, and I would love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, so it's one of the things. I will say this, and I think it is a negative, but it is a small negative about Columbus. And I keep hearing people say small town. This is not a small town. This city is bigger than Savannah. This city is larger than Charleston. This is not a small town. So the advice that I would give to Columbus in my 15 minutes of being here, and the advice that I would give to your students is don't be afraid to think bigger. You might not, get over the moon, but you're going to hit some targets, So I know that there are a lot of young folks who are in situations not of their own making that, cause challenges as it relates to achieving, whether it's education or otherwise. But again, you win some, you lose some, but you won't get anywhere if you don't try. So I would say that they need to think big about their future, think big about everything they're involved.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Steven?
Yeah, so who'd you vote for? I had to mess with you, but I had a good story for you. So Beltline, first of all, good job on that. Me and my buddy went up there for Mumford & Sons concert about 4 years ago, I think, and went to the market, where that is, where the draft beer and all that.
Yep.
So we hit that up, realized we could park there and take a bird over for about $2.
Yep.
And saved a lot on parking because of you. So thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah. What would you consider low-hanging fruit for us as a city, but maybe even more specifically for you in the chamber? Like, what is 1 year from now, you're sitting in the same seat, what have you accomplished? or chipped away at?
Strategic misalignments is what I call them. I'll give you one example, one big example, and it's on the workforce front. And if you look at, I think it's Jerald High School that has a digital media program. Okay, so I think digital media is great. It's fantastic. I just don't know where kids that get digital media educations are going to go work, right? So the question is, how can we turn that into broadcast communications, or how can we turn that into film? Something that is more applicable to being able to tell one of these young folks that knows they're not going to go to college, there's a place in Columbus for you to work. So you don't have to go to Atlanta or someplace else for that opportunity. So it's really looking, and that's just one example, but just looking at some of the strategic misalignments and really trying to get those in whack. And again, I know that there's some things that people feel really passionately about, and I'm not gonna go and tell somebody they shouldn't feel passionate about it, sort of thing. But I'm gonna work with coalitions of the willing to try to address some of those things. No, I know that didn't exactly answer.
Can you give us more examples?
You want a dragonfly example?
Yeah, I'm okay with some self-evaluation.
So I'll give you, so I think it was, I forget what road it is, but it's over near Carver High School. There's a segment of the dragonfly that's built over there. And I will tell you, at the Beltline,
This is before your time at all.
Yeah.
Yes.
I take all accountability.
well, so I can tell you though, the Riverwalk segment of the dragonfly is built fantastically. The quality of that build is impeccable. It cost us somewhere between $7 and $12 million a mile to build the Beltline. And I know Columbus didn't spend that, what was it, $1 million or $2 million?
Yeah, $1.5 million.
Yeah. So again, I'll go back to the quality of that is fantastic. But when you go to the segment over near Carver, for instance, what I noticed was curb cuts into like manufacturing facilities. And while you would let a 6-year-old ride their bike on the Riverwalk, I would never encourage a 6-year-old to ride their bike in that particular segment because they might get hit by an 18-wheeler. We obviously hope that does not happen. But my point is just kind of, trying to lend that expertise in scenarios like that. And again, I know that we can't let perfection be the enemy of the good. The goal there was to get it down and to get it into different parts of the community so that everybody felt like this was a community for them. But I think sometimes in doing what we think is the right thing can have adverse impacts. And, elephant in the room, right? And it's, the feeling of disparities with different parts of the community. And I think when somebody that lives in a particular part of the community who might be working 50 hours a week, maybe underemployed, sees that we've got fantastic quality in one place, but where they live, it's not so fantastic. It's, I think maybe in some regards, a little bit deflating. So again, just looking at scenarios like that and trying to figure out how, again, we can make some more strategic alignments that give everybody value. So again, looking at some things like that, working through, the Putting Columbus on the Map initiative where we have the ability to tell our stories. Those are really high priority things for me in the next year. Working through economic development where we've actually got target industry sectors that we are spending time and effort with attraction and recruitment. Just kind of working through more strategic pieces, I think, over the next year is where I see my time being predominantly spent.
As we talk about strategy, it's important to recognize Columbus 2025. And I hope that everybody in this room has heard about Columbus 2025 and it has at least seen some of the activity coming out of that. But, for us as an organization, the Chamber as an organization, years ago, we recognized that a lot of these communities that we felt like were doing it right were working off of a plan. So it was important for us as a region, not just Columbus, but that is everyone surrounding us, to come back and unify and say, look, if we want to be the next Nashville or Greenville or whatever it's going to be, we need to have strategy in place, and not a strategy that's going to collect dust on a bookshelf, but a strategy that people are actually going to work And so we went through all of the processes. We did what we called the Regional Prosperity Initiative, which shed a lot of light on where we were as a community and helped us identify where we need to go in the future. And so, Becca, kudos to you for chairing Vibrant Connected Places. There's 5 action areas that make up Columbus 2025. They all align with the work that we're doing as an organization.
Support art. We need help. We need help.
And
Support
yeah.
art.
Advocacy for art in public places and in places that need it the most, and art education, all the things. You're doing all the things, and we appreciate you. But I just want to make sure that y'all understand and recognize that Columbus does, we have a plan in place to support the region and to ensure that that we are recognizing and acknowledging that there are people in need and people that need opportunity, and they're looking for economic prosperity, and that's what this plan is all about. And Jerald's here. One of the main reasons that he's here is that he's going to be able to drive that home for us and take Columbus 2025 and the work of the chamber to the next level. So I think it's a good closing opportunity. Were there any online questions that we need to? Okay.
But I'll also say, just, again, I'm thinking back, 10 years or so for myself. And there were opportunities when I was in the room with people that could have helped me do different things in my career, and I was too shy or stubborn or whatever to ask. So another takeaway for the group, if I may, is don't be. When you're in a room with Jimmy Blanchard, take advantage of it. He's one of the nicest men you meet, and he is funny as all get out too. When you're in a room with Pace Halter back there, walk up to him and ask him that burning question that you've got. Don't be afraid to do that. You just never know where it's gonna take you.
Speaking of Pace, thank you.
He's our board chairman, by the way.
He's the chair of our board. He was with us in our time of transition, which was interesting times, and we appreciate all the work that you put in and continue to put in. He's looking for punishment, I guess. He agreed to chair for 2021 as well, which we appreciate you believing in the organization and the work that we do. So thank you for being here tonight and supporting Jerald. And Jerald, thank you for choosing Columbus. Okay, go for it.
I want to personally thank Amy and Jerald for being here. Thank you for being so candid and open with us. It was nice to really get to know you on this first one-on-one.
I didn't think it was optional to be here.
I wanted to give a quick few YP updates for upcoming events. Also, thank you, Brune Island, for hosting us tonight. Thank you to our partners and sponsors. Next Wednesday, November 11th at 7 p.m. via Zoom, we're going to do a virtual beer tasting with Chattahoochee. This is an event that you have to register for online, so then you can pick up your beer before the event. So this week in YP or on Facebook, Kayla will be posting some of that stuff. So if you're interested in that event, check that out. Our last Leadership Edge of the year is going to be on Thursday, November 19th at noon. One of our good friends, Maggie Reese, is going to do a session with us on using LinkedIn to get and grow your dream role. So check that out in next week's This Week in YP. And then since Amy and Jerald talked about the Dragonfly Trail, I want to go ahead and tell you about an event that we're going to have in December. December 10th at 5:30, we are partnering with the Dragonfly Trail, and we're going to do a ride and get Becca to tell us a little bit more about the trail system. So we hope that y'all will all join us for that. But thank you all for being here with us tonight, and we hope to see you at the next event.